Okay, we're live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting on this Monday, June 14th. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Regional Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds, Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch or participate in this open meeting electronically using any of the following methods. First off, you can watch the live stream by accessing the meeting at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You cannot directly participate in the meeting via the live stream, as this is for viewing only. The second option is for members of the public interested in attending as an observer or wish to speak to any item must submit the request in writing to the clerk's division at clerk@northdumfries.ca before 6 p.m. on Sunday, June 13th. A link and telephone number was provided to those who registered before the registration deadline. And thirdly, if you would like to comment on any particular item but are not available to attend the meeting virtually, members of the public are invited to submit written comments at clerk@northdumfries.ca, which will be provided to the mayor and council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, and can I please have approval of the agenda?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner, that Council adopt the June 14th, 2021 Committee of the Whole agenda as presented with the following addendum. 1, add item 6.5, report number REC-10-2021, gasket replacement for the heat exchange, NDCC. And 2, add additional correspondence received for item 7.1, report number CAO-15-2021, transform WR strategy. And that item 7, report number CAO-15-2021, transform WR strategy, be moved up in the agenda as the first business item immediately following item 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof under Committee of the Whole agenda. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, we will adjourn council to go into Committee of the Whole.
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that council adjourn to sit as Committee of the Whole. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Report 7.1, report number CAO 15-2021, Transform Waterloo Region Strategy, presentation from Mary Jane Patterson, Executive Director of REIT Green Solutions, and Tova Davidson, Executive Director of Sustainable Waterloo Region. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Mary Jane.
It is a pleasure to be here, and I want to let you know that Tova will be coming. Kitchener Council is just coming close to its vote on this. So I'm the advance guard, and I'm ready. So may I share my screen?
Please do.
Okay, let me find it.
Mary Jane, did you find it? If not, oh, you got it. There you go.
I've got it. I'm making it bigger. There we go. Oh, don't get dizzy.
There you
Sorry,
go.
I was supposed to be there. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It is a real pleasure to present to you tonight Transform WR, Waterloo Region's transition to an equitable, prosperous, resilient, low-carbon community. As you probably know, Climate Action WR is behind Transform WR. It is a collaboration between Sustainable Waterloo Region and Reap Green Solutions and all of the municipalities in Waterloo Region working together around the table to plan our climate future for this community. We've done this by working backwards. It's called backcasting. So we started with the future that we want to see, and we did this with the whole community 2 years ago, maybe 3. We went out to the whole community with this big board that you might remember seeing and a line from 0 to 100 across the top. And we asked people to put a yellow sticker where they saw our community in 2050 with regard to emission reductions, and also to put all their ideas onto the screen about what they envision that community to look like. And then we worked with technical and community engagement specialists to work backwards from that desirable future to say, how can we make that happen? We did widespread community consultation once we had set that target of an 80% reduction by 2050 to say, how can we get there? And over 1,600 people participated in this through many different ways. Through the Engage Waterloo Region, Engage WR platform, through lots of public events and not just environmental events. We were at the arena, we were at a rodeo, we were all over the place getting input from people. We also consulted over 100 technical experts asking, how can we achieve this goal of 80% by 2050? Some of them were local, some of them were municipal staff, and others local experts and consultants. And we also got input from people working at the national and international level. So that was really helpful trying to figure out how we can technically achieve what we're proposing. I want to let you know that everything we're proposing in Transform WR aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, which have been put forward by the United Nations. In particular, they align with number 13 for climate action, but number 17 is important, where it says partnerships for the goals, because climate change is affecting so many of these goals that really we will move forward on almost all of them if we do address climate change properly. One thing we realized very clearly from the technical and community consultations is that this is no longer the time for incremental change. This is the time for transformational change. And we put forward from this plan 4 calls to action to transform the ways we move, the ways we build and operate our spaces, the ways we produce, consume, and waste, and the ways we relate to each other. And that's the transformation that will lead us to this equitable, prosperous, resilient, low carbon community that we want to be. You see here the different trajectories that we can be on. The first one, the red one, it just assumes no change at all but population growth. The yellow one shows that there are some trends emerging that will help to reduce emissions, such as the increase in interest in electric vehicles, for example, in addition to population growth taking us the other way. But the green path is the one to really pay attention to. That is the trajectory that helps us achieve an 80% reduction in our emissions by 2050. And I want to let you know that in putting this forward to the community, we got a lot of feedback, not only at the time when we were creating the plan, but after we had a draft put together, we put that back out to the community, and we got input from municipalities, from the agricultural sector, from utilities. We had an equity and social justice review done of this plan, and we heard back from a lot of people on it too. It was on Engage WR again. All of that feedback has been incorporated into this plan. So let's look at the 6 transformative changes that will help us achieve those calls to action. The first 2 are about transportation. So by 2050, we want most trips to be taken using active transportation with the support of a robust public transit system. And we heard from the rural communities that this is going to be a different challenge for them from the urban centers. And part of what we're talking about in this plan is that each community may need to find its own way to achieving our goals. And sometimes there may be more reductions from one measure than from another. How can our communities help us get there? Well, we're looking at planning a network of active transportation corridors and working within our different municipalities and supporting people in walking, cycling, and rolling. How can we participate and help people get those intercity, intertown, intermodal connections with public transit connected as much as possible? The second transportation related one is that our remaining vehicles be zero emission vehicles. So we're looking at a pretty significant shift here, and that's well underway, as you may be familiar with. How can our communities help us get there, our municipalities? We can start with fleets and commercial vehicles and transition them to zero emission as swiftly as possible and collaborate region-wide on this strategy. We can also look at making sure we've got electric vehicle charging stations in public places so that, for example, when municipalities are approving new residential developments, that they have parking spaces that are EV ready. The third transformational change is that businesses and homes no longer use fossil fuels for space heating and cooling and water heating by 2050. So we're looking at the way we heat water and space and saying we have to decarbonize that. How can we find ways to do that without carbon-based fuels? How can our municipalities help us get there? Well, one thing that we're working on together, all of the municipalities together, is offering innovative loans for energy-related building upgrades. And right now we're starting with the residential sector. Another way to do that is developing standards that support new developments to be zero carbon. The next two changes relate to the ways we relate to waste, that we use less, waste less, and no longer dispose of organic matter in our landfills. So our goal here is to maintain the same level of methane emissions that we had in 2010 from our landfills, despite economic growth and population growth. And our municipalities can help us get there by really trying to introduce circular economy concepts and campaigns, implementing community waste reduction campaigns. And part of this is looking at building demolitions and making sure they're absolutely necessary, because there's a lot of construction waste that results from that. The second one that relates to waste is about a thriving local food system built on local farming and food production and processing that feeds our community. And here's a similar type of goal here, to maintain the same level of methane emissions from livestock that we had in 2010. So how can our municipalities help us do that? A really important priority has to be protecting our agricultural land and the local agricultural system, having robust land use planning protections for that. And the second one is looking at new technologies, at research in reducing emissions from livestock and methane capture and energy production from manure. Here is the final one. By 2050, that Waterloo Region has leveraged reductions in greenhouse gas emissions to increase equity, prosperity, and resiliency for all. This is one where we heard from across the community. We just heard how important this was. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance as we propose to do all of these kinds of transformations to make our community more equitable at the same time. Really pay attention to how the changes that we make could affect this, and keeping in mind how we can increase equity as we reduce emissions. So how can our communities help us do that? One start is establishing metrics to measure our progress on doing this. How can we look at the initiatives we propose for reducing emissions and look at their impact on equity? Secondly, this is also about increasing prosperity for our community. We want to position ourselves as a clean tech hub here in Waterloo Region. And one way that we can do that is looking at renewable energy generation here in the region and collaborating on evaluating how to identify and protect optimal areas for renewable energy generation. Rural areas may have, for example, sites that are suitable for industrial level renewable energy generation. And finally, an important one here is advocacy to senior levels of government, because some of the systems that are at work in our community are beyond our control, such as the amount of fossil fuels in our electricity system. So it's going to be very important for us to collaborate on advocating to senior levels of government about those other systems. In closing, I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone in North Dumfries, staff and council. We have so appreciated working with Andrew McNeely and Michelle Poisson on this. Thank you to them. And want to note that we've had some neat volunteer participation in our sector committees also that has helped us get here. I think that this plan is just such an inspiring vision of the community we want to see, and we are really looking forward to rolling our sleeves up and working with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Can you take your slide presentation down, please?
I'm sure I can. I just have to figure out. Wait, I go over here. There's something up here that would probably let me do that. When the square gets very little, it's hard to know. Oh, this looks promising. Oh, there's Tova.
Welcome, Tova.
Did I succeed? It looks gone from my screen.
You did a great job.
Okay, great.
I don't see any hands up, councillors. Any comments or questions? Just a note when you said about transportation and that the townships are not allowed to provide transportation or do transportation. It all comes from the region. And the region hasn't reached us yet. We're working on it. Right, CEO McNeely? Yeah. We're working on it. Okay, well, thank you. And Tova, how did it go in Kitchener?
Kitchener passed unanimously with an amendment to the motion.
Very,
so
very
exciting.
good.
Yes.
Well, congratulations. Next, we have up Kay Reamer Watts and Megan Rattan Walker in 50 by 30.
Good afternoon. Just to clarify, are we sharing the slides or are those shared by staff?
If you could share, that'd be great.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Just one moment.
Thanks, Kai.
Very good, Kai.
You're able to see that?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, great. Megan, I believe you can take it away.
I do. So good afternoon, or evening as it is now. Through you, Mayor Foxton, I'm Meg Rattan Walker with Kay Reamer Watts, here to represent 50 by 30 Waterloo Region, a group of organizers operating on the principle that climate action is urgent and speed is justice. In 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its 1.5 report outlining the actions countries would need to take in order to keep global temps under 1.5 Celsius of climate warming, which is widely seen as the line in the sand for climate safety. The overarching goal of these solutions, halving emissions by 50% by 2030, committing to that goal of 50% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, is aligned with Waterloo Region's obligations both locally and globally. Next slide.
Right, so I won't read all of these out, but the point is, as a local organizing grassroots group, we've been doing a lot to help galvanize local communities into action and support good actions and work already taking place by others, centering support for climate solutions and social justice. And of course, we've had to pivot strategies quite a lot during this pandemic. We, at this time, haven't been able to organize the strikes that brought thousands and thousands of people out back in 2019. But we've still managed to organize dozens of community events regardless. And thousands of emails at this point have now been sent in to local councillors across the region in support of 50 by 30. This additional motion, it has so far been passed by the City of Waterloo, most recently, just a few minutes ago, Kitchener, Cambridge, Wellesley and Woolwich. So we're community conveners. We'll continue to do the work to translate concern into action and to back you all up as you continue to move forward in taking bold actions. We also want to recognize the vital work Climate Action WR has accomplished, and that's gone into informing the Transform WR report just presented, which is certainly a critical part of catalyzing solutions in our region. And so we endorse this strategy to approve today to get us moving immediately into action while still insisting on aspiring to align our near-term target for 2030 with the present global moment in climate science. And a letter explaining this in more detail has been circulated with Council.
So how the climate has changed and will keep changing. You've seen these graphs before. They're on all the talking points for how urgent climate action is. And the warnings aren't new, they're just growing more urgent. Global CO2 levels are currently at 419 parts per million in atmospheric concentrations worldwide, far above the recommended threshold of 350 parts per million to secure a safe and stable climate. We are at approximately 1.3 degrees of climate change right now. If we continue on this trajectory, we will see 4 degrees of climate change Celsius. Children in Waterloo Region will live to see this temperature change. My 7-year-old will live to see this temperature change. It's a completely new geological era in their lifetimes. Climate change isn't a future problem. It's a crisis that will play out over the course of children's lives. Our community will not be exempt from impacts. Next slide.
Right, so there's a saying that prevention is the best medicine. Of course, that has been driven home during this pandemic. And it's really our duty to do all that we can to prevent the worst outcomes of this for the well-being of our communities, our economies, and really the safety of all. We need to catalyze a more just, clean energy future. And that needs to start moving quickly. And thankfully, there are a lot of signs that change is happening. The US just recently this year set a goal of 50 to 52% reduction by 2030. Shell, a major fossil fuel producer, was recently ordered to reduce emissions 45% by 2030, including those that come from using their products. And cities are really stepping into major leadership roles. The C40 Cities Initiative is a coalition of communities around the world committed to tackling climate action at the municipal level. And so far, over 700 have committed to do their fair share to reach 50 by 30. That includes Vancouver here in Canada, and also Halifax, upping it to 75. And then the University of Waterloo just a few weeks ago, or maybe last week, committed to 50 by 30. So we know we can decarbonize at a dramatic rate. We are an innovation and tech leader, and we have every reason to lead this global push and hence benefit from the transition already underway.
And when it comes to the benefits of bold climate action, there are many, certainly far more reasons to act rather than not act, or not enough action at the moment. Winning slowly is the same as losing. So Halifax estimates that their plan to reach 50 by 30 will generate over 90,000 person years of employment in the coming decade, which is equivalent to opening a Toyota plant every year. And in our region, the Community Energy Investment Strategy has identified the potential to keep millions of local energy dollars in our region through the creation of local renewable energy. Next slide.
Right, so local businesses are already reaping the benefits of being out front on practical, cost-effective climate action. And this is a Cambridge company, Veriform, that I believe has also been benefiting from the support of Climate Action WR in reducing its emissions and growing their workforce, expanding their plant and increasing profits as a direct result. And so there are many examples like this that show environmental and economic benefits can both result when we weighed in strong and steady to face the challenge.
And the future isn't just coming, it's speeding up, both in terms of the climate crisis and our ability to address it. We must meet the crisis at the speed at which it demands, and our profoundly changing world demands the speed. Because to quote Alex Steffen, a climate futurist, yes, speed is justice. Every amount of carbon released matters, and what we release here in Waterloo Region matters, as we are all interdependent. Next slide. So
just to wrap up, your decisions today in both supporting Transform WR strategy and a 50 by 30 amendment can help create the North Dumfries of tomorrow. And that's a community that leads on climate action because it's the right thing to do, a safer community that proactively prepares to meet future crises in a strong and steady way, and a more prosperous community with thriving businesses contributing to leading edge solutions. So really, by committing to this together, and what's wonderful is that we are a region where we work together. Everyone can benefit from this transition, especially when we center equity in solutions as well. So thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
All.
Can you take your display off, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, Joan. Just as a note, I grew up when there was acid rain. Do any of you remember acid rain? And you would go out and it would eat right through your nylons and stuff. And everybody worked quite quickly to end it and to close the ozone layer. And it worked very well. I hope we don't have to get too drastic to get an acid rain situation, that we can move this forward a lot quicker than that. And we're getting there. I'm trying to talk my husband into a hybrid car. Next, we have Stephanie. Is Stephanie here? There she is. Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
Good. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, so tonight, I'm attending today as the co-chair of the Food Systems Roundtable of Waterloo Region. So the Food Systems Roundtable has been active for over a dozen years and started out initially working in partnership with the region of Waterloo. The Food Systems Roundtable provides education on, sorry, let's just move my screen. Oops. There we go. The Food Systems Roundtable provides education on food systems to improve the sustainability of the Waterloo region's local food environment and the health of its residents. Through partnerships with producers, vendors, educators, the Roundtable enables research and education on food policy, educational or agricultural and health services, and sustainability to raise awareness about key issues and bring people closer to the food. Our vision is a healthy, just, and sustainable food system, which is one where all residents have access to and can afford to buy safe, nutritious, and culturally acceptable food that has been produced in an environmentally sustainable way, and that supports our rural communities. Such a food system promotes social justice, population health, and profitable farms, reflects and sustains local culture, and supports ecological viability. To achieve this vision for a healthy food system, there's a need to carry out food systems planning and to establish principles that govern food-related decisions. Okay. Currently, our global food system is under threat. Climate change and growing populations are generally working against our ecosystems. Many of our basic agricultural assumptions are being challenged because of the diverse factors. To quote the World Bank, by now, most of us are familiar with the role forests play in absorbing carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that are accelerating climate change around the world. But forests are not just one of those, are just part of the broader landscape that often includes water resources and farming that can play an important role in climate change mitigation. Because of this and many other challenges, the Roundtable is continuously building our network, one of which last year was Our Food Futures, which was created. It's a joint project from the University of Waterloo and the Food Systems Roundtable of Waterloo Region to bring the best from research and community to inform our path toward food justice in the region. Tonight, though, I'm going to speak about a relationship with 50 by 30 Waterloo Region and our support of their recommendation of setting stronger climate goals, specifically 50% reduction of GHG by 2030. Okay. And so we created a food charter several years ago. I'm just going to highlight 3 or 4 of these sections, and how it ties with your township. So my presentation, so after reviewing your township strategic plan, I found that it closely aligned with what we're saying. Obviously, you've set a huge priority to economic development and food policies, and as well as ecological health of your wetlands and forests. So we support community economic development by building the processing and distribution infrastructure required to make local foods available for local residents and global trades. So years before I became the chair of the Food Systems Roundtable, way before COVID, I heard about the dire need for more local food processing facilities, which included local small commercial kitchens. One of the things we can do in rural areas and also urban areas is by making use of already existing commercial kitchens, and hopefully also creating more kitchens by adapting your policies. That would not only increase the number of small food businesses, but small to medium-sized processing facilities, which would reduce the carbon footprint of all the produce and animals products being shipped out of the region for processing and then shipped back for sale. So the world's food systems are actually responsible for more than 1/3 of the global greenhouse gas emissions. There's numerous organizations and people who would love to work with you to adapting your policies to encourage small business growth, as well as working with current facilities or creating new facilities that could help with food processing. So next we support access to healthy food by protecting farmland and urban development, and by supporting policies and other initiatives that ensure that we have access to nutritious food. So protecting our farmland from urban development is key. Only 5% of Canada's land is prime farmland, and 50% of that is Ontario. Ontario has been facing a steady decline in its agricultural land base since the 1970s. I don't need to speak very much about that. You guys are aware of this. Obviously, the Roundtable also has wished there would be stronger policies regarding industrial use and agricultural extraction on farmland. But like I said, you guys are well aware of this, so I don't need to go into that and importance of that. But keeping food local to our local area to reduce the transportation, I think would be should be a far higher priority than keeping aggregate close to market. Okay, then we also have supporting jobs. So there's more opportunities for job creation in landscape and environmental management, which would also help to reduce GHG. For example, landscape management generates significant volumes of organic matter. Most of this matter is directed into waste systems. Instead, this can be processed into use and products that sequester a significant portion of its carbon. And now in City of Waterloo, they are looking at potentially eliminating their leaf pickup. And I know that one of the councillors is talking with potentially local businesses as a way of creating compost. So there are opportunities of utilizing landscape waste and other waste to bring down your carbon and sequester carbon within your township. And then of course, we support integrated food systems and policies. Everything has to be local, but provincial and federal governments need to do their part. And you need to be working together, obviously, as you know, to come up with better plans of how to reduce your greenhouse gases together. And then looking at different options. So there's the local climate caucus, some councillors within Waterloo region. There's over 300 across Canada that come together to help transform communities. I was talking with the National Farmers Union. They've recently created a report in late 2019, December 2019, regarding tackling the farm crisis and also the climate crisis, as well as Drawdown has recently just released a report this year looking at the world's resource for looking at farming as a way to tackle climate change. So there's tons of resources available for you out there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Interesting. I was at the regional council. I'm sorry, my days are all screwed up. I don't know what day it is anymore. I think it was Thursday of last week. And we were doing the ROP, the official regional official plan review. And of course, developers and builders and industry come out and they talk about what they need lands for what. And one woman stood up and said, you have to protect the farmland. Where in your official plan is this protection of farmland? She quoted the numbers of past farmland, and then she gave today's number. And I asked her, did this include aggregate? Because that's not farming in my book, and yet aggregate does fall under farming. And I said, it'd be interesting to see what the real number is without the aggregate added in. Because we know it doesn't produce anything healthy for us.
No,
So
yeah,
that was really interesting that she did that.
yeah. So that might have been Sam, potentially.
It was an older woman, so. I don't think
Okay, okay.
so.
Yeah, so there is I think someone just quoted in the newspaper on Twitter was that I think in 7 generations, if we keep losing the farmland the rate we are, we'll have absolutely no farmland left. There'll be nothing.
And it's
And then there's also the need, right? So there's currently in Woolwich a rezoning of the pit in Maryland. And there's no proof that there's actually need. As you know, in Wilmot, there's 5 or 6 pits that are sitting in Bankit, you know, and they're not used because currently there's no need for flooding the system with aggregate. So putting in more aggregate, allowing rezoning for more aggregate just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we could hijack this whole meeting talking
Yes.
about that, so we
Sorry
won't
about
do that. I just saw Councillor Gillespie nodding her head, understanding totally as from a huge farming background. How many generations, Pam? Councillor Gillespie?
My daughters are 5th generation.
Farmers.
That's right. So,
And I hope there's another 5 after that.
no.
Yeah, and I was talking with the agricultural, Waterloo Region Agricultural Association, and they're really interested in looking at how they can engage in local initiatives. And so they invited me to come at their AGM to talk about 50 by 30, as well as other things that are happening with Citizens for Safe Groundwater and yeah, just all the different amazing things. They're hoping to get more involved. And I think that's exciting to see that energy from our local farmers, that they see this potential for not only producing food, but carbon sequestration, which they know how to do. They just need the tools and resources to do it. They need the funding and they need the access of the help and support. But then also looking at social justice. And so I mentioned there was Elisa who's doing the KW Urban Harvesters and the Grow Row program, and looking at how you can donate part of the unused food to them, and they will donate to the food bank. And people, you know, they were writing their names down because that's something they're interested in. They want to do this, right?
Well, thank you all. And now we have Alicia. Alicia, there she is, down at the bottom. Alicia? Hello, Alicia.
Hi. I was confused. Very close, Elisa.
Elisa, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. I have a presentation here that okay, I can share my screen.
Of course.
Right. Okay. So I'm really glad to be presenting here tonight at the last minute. I submitted. So my name is Elisa McClurg, and I'm presenting on behalf of my garden group, KW Urban Harvester. Our vision is to transform urban spaces into anything sustainably edible, preserve the harvest, and save the seeds. We started in the spring of 2006 as a program of the Laurier Student Public Interest Research Group. Our goals are very much in line with the idea of a thriving local food system put forward here today. We've been working together to promote the production of fresh, healthy food in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And here's some pictures of us many years ago. With the pandemic and with the help of our friends and collaborators like the Food System Roundtable, we upped our efforts and started, as you heard, the Grow a Row program, encouraging people to grow a row or a messy patch, depending on how they garden, for those in need. And here's some of the fresh, healthy food we grew last year. We also started a yard share program. These folks here having just helped create one in someone's yard that helps to match those with extra yard space for gardening to those needing space to garden. And yes, they are actually having fun. And this is a program that we're hoping to be rolling out further soon. For this year, through these programs, we have the goal of donating 5,000 shopping bags worth of produce. We have a tagline, dissolve the pavement, reimagine the turf, and repurpose unneeded structures to grow food. So you can guess from this tagline that our dreams go much further than simply promoting urban food production. Because to boost urban food production, we wish not only to reimagine the grass, but also reduce, dissolve the pavement, and even transform buildings to grow food. Greenhouse gas emissions would be drastically reduced because we would reduce food miles and increase carbon sequestration by gardening instead of having lawns and so much pavement. What's more, these changes require much less external financial input from governments, etc., but rather rely largely on the support of our community. Through KW Urban Harvesters' involvement in the local food movement, we have seen firsthand people's willingness to step up and help. For this and many other reasons, we believe that our community is capable of far more than we have thought possible. With this in mind, we at Urban Harvester stand with 50 by 2030 to be consistent with what the science is saying we need to do and is in line with the Paris Agreement for a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. To make this goal achievable, we'd like to ask people to consider getting involved in KW Urban Harvester or any other gardening group for that matter. For folks in North Dumfries, of course, that means getting involved with other locally based garden groups. With our initiatives to boost and track overall urban food production, we do, though, offer a practical model of how municipalities like North Dumfries can reduce greenhouse emissions while also increasing access to fresh, healthy food and the vibrancy and health of our community. While all that is incredibly important to me, on a more personal note, I'm sharing here a picture of my daughter, Liliana, quietly picketing in our nearby woods, reminding me with her sign that she needs me, you, and all of us. I bring her in today because she and other children like her are the ones relying on us and will be the ones to continue whatever work that Council commits to today. And they are the ones, and for her and the other children, I ask that Council demonstrate leadership and commit to a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisa. Just to note, we have community gardens at our complex at the NDCC, and citizens just apply for the plot space and they grow their vegetables and fruits. We also have a horticultural society, and they also do fruits and vegetables and share stocks and seeds and everything else. So quite vibrant, as well as our farmers who provide quite a lot extensively for us as well. We're very blessed. We're very blessed. Are there any questions or comments? I don't see any. So Ms. Sage, can we have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Rolleman, seconded by Councillor Osner, that Council receives a presentation from Mary Jane Patterson, Executive Director, REAP Green Solutions, and Topa Davison, Executive Director, Sustainable Waterloo Region, with thanks. And that Council receives CAO report number 15-2021, and that Council endorsed the framework and overarching principles of the Transform Waterloo WR documentation received June 14th, 2021 as the community climate change mitigation strategy for the township. And that Council provide direction to the Chief Administrative Officer, that across the organization, the requirement to develop detailed plans to implement the strategy for the township. This includes 1, developing an implementation plan and priorities. 2, incorporating the strategy into strategic and business plans and the budget process where applicable. And that the township advocate for provincial and federal support and action to achieve the community transformations outlined in Transform WR documentation. And that council directs staff to work with local partners on implementation, monitoring, and reporting process. And that this report be submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities as the township's community scope progress on the Partners for Climate Protection Program milestones 1 to 3 as renewed.
CEO McNeely, is that complete? Was there a clause we were adding in there?
Madam Mayor, the delegates individually have identified to you a desire for the township to go beyond the 30 by 30 strategy, which is set out in the Transform WR document. They've asked that council endorse a more aggressive schedule, which would be 50% reduction of carbon emissions by 2030. I believe, if I understood correctly, Kitchener this evening embraced such an endorsement, and previously the City of Waterloo, City of Cambridge, Township of Woolwich, and the Township of Wellesley. Later tonight, Wilmot Township will be hearing a similar presentation. I did provide to council an alternative recommendation, which would add 1 more provision to the resolution as spoken out loud by the clerk, and council may wish to reflect upon adding the additional provision, which speaks to the 50 by 30 scenario, which is contingent upon senior levels of government, province and federal government, to embark upon significant legislative change, which may make the 50 by 30 target achievable.
Do we have that text? Will that be added to this? So this will be an amended resolution?
So, Madam Mayor, if council wishes, the last aspect of the resolution would be framed similar to, and that council endorse in principle an interim absolute community greenhouse gas emission reduction target of 50% by 2030, recognizing that bold and immediate local actions in the attached Transform WR strategy are expected to achieve a 30% reduction by 2030. Council emphasizes that bold and immediate actions from the provincial and federal government will also be required to reach this deeper reduction target.
Would the mover and the seconder, which is Councillor Rollman and Councillor Rossner, approve the add into the motion, the amendment to the motion? Councillor Rossner, Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So a motion as amended, we can now take the vote on, please.
Certainly. Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes, in favor?
Councillor Rossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming in tonight. Go home, put your feet up for 5 minutes now, since you Zoom everywhere.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you, everyone. That's wonderful
Thank you very,
news.
very much for the support.
Thank you so much.
We'll wait till they're all cleared out. Cynthia, you'll let us know when we're good. Looks like we're good. We're looking at the finance function areas, 4.1 to 4.4. Would anyone like to poll any or speak on any of these 4 items? Councilor Rollman.
4.2, please, the skate park.
Yes. Councilor McCreary? You're on mute.
4.1 and 4.3.
So separate resolution for 4.4, the financial update. Let me just find that here. It's got to be here somewhere. Let's do 4.4, Ms. Sage, please.
Certainly, moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Osner that the Committee of the Whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as listed in the Finance Function Area. Item 4.4, report number FIN-17-2021 financial update, May 31st, 2021. Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
that carries.
Thank you. We will start with 4.1, which is the proposed repurchasing policy. Margaret. Councilor McCreary.
Got a couple questions on 4.1. I noticed that there's quite a difference in council's participation in approving the contracts because of the change in the thresholds, the various categories. Previously, if the contract was greater than $10,000, it would come to council for council's approval. Now the threshold for coming to approval to council is up to $100,000. And only if it's over $100,000 does it actually come to council for approval. So I'm just wondering how those thresholds were decided upon. And is this similar to the other 3 townships in the Waterloo region?
Go ahead, Ms. Bratz.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. So we did compare our proposed bylaw to the other regional townships, and if anything, we're a little lower than some of them. Everything that we are proposing here is when we are within the council approved budget. So we are not removing council's authority over the purchasing. We are just trying to streamline and speed up some of the smaller purchases by allowing us as directors to make the purchases within the approved budgets that you have set on an annual basis.
Thank you, Ms. Bratz. Is that okay, Margaret?
Yes, that's good. I have one more question about 4.1. I'm wondering about the role of our external auditors, like BDO Dunwoody, when they come in and review our internal controls. Is this something that they would look at to ensure that this policy is being followed and that there is, let's say, proper documentation to show that the quotes were obtained or the bids have been looked at correctly?
Yes. Part of the annual audit is a audit of our purchasing, and they typically, auditors will test controls first. So they will look at the thresholds that have been established in our policies and ensure that we are following them.
Okay, thank you. Happy with that.
You're good, Councilor McCreary? Okay, thank you. Ms. Bratz, at the end of the report, it says no financial impact in doing the bylaw, but we actually state in the bylaw that we will be using legal to overlook the bylaw. So would we not put that into the report as well, that the cost would be legal reviewing the bylaw?
Fair. I guess I did not consider the fact that we had already budgeted for some legal fees during the year, so I was not anticipating exceeding any of the budget lines.
Okay, so it'll be budgeted as is, so it's no further financial impact. Okay, that's good. That's fine then. Thank you. Are we good with the motion for number 4.1? No other questions? Can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
By Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that report number FIN-14-2021 be received, and that staff be directed to return the bylaw at a future meeting of council for enactment, pending review of the township solicitor. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have 4.2, which is the McNeil Dodd skateboard at Cowan Park, skate park at Cowan Park. Councillor Rollman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is in regards to page 3 of the report. The opening paragraph there talks about it is unclear at this time if the remaining $11,000 will be collected if 11,000 is collected or a portion thereof, the surplus in this project would increase about the present valuation. So I'm not sure if that means the 4415 includes the 11,000, or is it the 4415 plus 11,000? I'm just curious what that means.
I think it was a
about the
typo.
present.
It meant above. But CO McNeely, go ahead.
So Madam Mayor, through Councillor Rowland, at present, as we speak today, the surplus is $4,400. If we collect anything additional out of that 11,000, it would grow the surplus to a higher number.
Okay. So then my follow-up question would be, if we did indeed get the extra 11,000, say we had 15,000 in that account, and we didn't use all that money for the skate park, would we be able then to use that money for a future pump track? Could we rename the reserve, instead of a skate park reserve, call it the skate park / pump track reserve, and that way we'd have that money available for a future project if it so arises?
So Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rollman, that decision would be subject to council approval. So staff would actually have to bring a report back to council for council to reallocate how those funds are to be expended as a go forward. The monies were collected on the premise of a skate park project, and monies were received for that end purpose. And that is why staff have framed it as a skate park reserve account, recognizing that that was the desired purpose for which those monies were originally collected.
CO McNeely, is it not correct that we would have to go back to the people donating the money and state we would like to use it for another recreation thing, such as the pump track? Would we not have to have their permission for that?
Well, Madam Mayor, the reality is there's quite a few people that have provided donations for this. The surplus is a result of everybody's contributions, not just the last remaining 3 or 4 accounts.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So it would be problematic to go back to all of the people that generously donated funds. This was a community-driven project, and a substantial amount of the contributions were the result of either direct contributions through individuals and or securing outside funding through the Hallman Foundation or Trillium.
But we may use some of the funding for trees and plantings and such, correct?
Madam Mayor, what staff has recommended is that so we can close out the 2020 books, to create the reserve, and in 2021 pull some of the monies out of the reserves and this year to expend on purchasing trees at and around the skate park facility.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, could I have the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that report number FIN-15-2021 be received, and that council direct staff to allocate $3,415.53 surplus from the construction of the skate park in 2020 to the skate park reserve, and any further pledges collected in 2021 be allocated to the skate park reserve, and that staff be authorized in 2021 to withdraw funds from the skate park reserve for the purposes of the purchase and planting of trees, amenities surrounding the skate park facility. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have the reserves transfers. Councillor McCreary, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, my only question about this one is these reserve transfers are based on the draft 2020 financial statements, and those haven't come to council yet. And I'm just wondering when we can expect to see them.
If I may address that question. The information has been all submitted to our auditors. There were some delays in getting them the information between the transition from Ms. Dettel to myself. So we're back in the queue of them being finalized. I'm hoping that they will be coming in July, but I am just trying to finalize a date with them.
Thank you.
And,
So,
and these are just, if I may, these are just cleanup items of items that it was the intention of the township to move these funds into 2021's budget or future
thank
years.
so what kind of surplus is this talking about then? Is this talking to almost $100,000 surplus that we're moving into reserves? Or is this carry forwards of allocated money delegated in 2020 that did not get spent?
These are very specific projects that did not get spent in 2020 that we're carrying forward. Surplus, the general surplus will, we're waiting on the final audited numbers to bring that report to council.
Thank you. Any other questions, councilors? Seeing none, can I have the report, please? And Ms. Sage, you do not have to read it in entirety.
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that report number FIN-16-2021 2020 reserve transfers be received, and that's as presented in the staff report. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Now we have under developmental services function area, Council, any item you would like to speak on? We do have speakers in this, I believe, Ms. Sage. We have 2 speakers. Do we want to hold both and wait till the speakers are done, councilors? I think that makes the most sense. The first one is report number PD 36-2021, approval of a site plan control agreement for 2099 Roseville Road. Representative of the owner have registered Shane Egan, Edward King, Brian Dice, and Steve Edwards. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton, members of committee. It's Steve Edwards here. I'm the planning lead with GHD in Whitby, which is 65 Sunray Street, Whitby, if you need the address. With me, as the mayor indicated, is Shane, who's vice president for Forterra, Edwin Kling, who's also from Forterra, and Brian Dice, who's our engineer. I think Shane just wanted to make a couple comments about Forterra, if you're there, Shane.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Council, for your time. Shane Egan, just a little about the Roseville Road location. It's situated on 43 acres. It was first commissioned in 1974, we had a plant addition in 1979, and another plant addition in 1987. We're seeking approval, please, to extend plant 2 to make some special products. It's about 11,500 square feet extension, or 1,000 square meters, situated in the middle of the property. We will be creating 8 full-time jobs added to the current 67 hourly, plus staff, plus clerical, and plus engineering. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity to attend tonight, and hopefully council will approve the submission. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. And all I'm going to add, Madam Mayor, is we'd like to thank staff for bringing forward the report. I know Shahid worked hard to get that. We do support the recommendations, and we're looking forward to council's approval as the building permit application has been made. And if we deal with the site plan, that review can get underway. And otherwise, we'd attempt to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, can I have the resolution, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that report number PD-36-2021 be received, and that council approve a site plan control agreement between the Township of North Dumfries and Forterra Pipe and Precast Limited, including Fort Nom Holdings Incorporated, the owner, to construct a manufacturing building addition, 1,081.8 square meters in size, located at 2099 Roseville Road, subject to the following. 1, the inclusion of all outstanding matters as identified by the Township's Energy Plus and Building Division. 2, any minor revisions as required by the Chief Administrative Officer. and that bylaw number 3258-21 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan control agreement between Forterra Pipe and Precast Limited and the township be executed. Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
that carries.
Thank you. And thank you for coming, gentlemen. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're good to go now. Next, we have report number PD-37-2021, proposed red line revision to phase 1A and 1B subdivision file 30T18301. Brandon Flewelling from GSP Group Inc. has registered on this item. So Brandon, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you again tonight. I will just share my screen quickly as I think it'll help to speak to the matter before us. So can you see that okay?
No.
Oh, wait, I have to hit share. There we go.
Yeah.
I was watching the others share their screens like, I got this, Brandon, and then I still mixed it up. So before you tonight is a graphic just representing what this modification request is for. And what it is the phase 1A and 1B of the Bros draft plan of subdivision. You will recall that a similar request was previously before council at the May 25th meeting. The request at that time was seeking red line revisions for the entirety of the draft plan, so beyond stage 1A and 1B, and would have resulted in the addition of 9 more lots. A new request has been submitted just dealing with phase 1A and 1B, and the additional lots that are created are identified on the screen, highlighted in yellow, approximately. As you can see, there's been a slight change to the lotting fabric only to standardize the interior lots within the draft plan. The request was initiated by the builder who is going to build within this first phase to standardize the lots so that when they come to selling the lots, for example, there's no confusion with the salespeople in terms of what the lotting fabric is and what potential building types or models can fit on the individual lots. With the original draft plan approval, there was some variation within the internal lot widths. So the builder saw this, wanted to essentially standardize all of the internal lots, put the extra width at on the end lots or the corner lots, so that when they're selling and marketing and so on, there's no confusion as to the types of homes and which homes fit on which individual lots. The proposed modification is completely in keeping with the zoning that is approved, and the draft plan modification does not require any exterior changes to the draft plan. So the park block, all of the streets, any walkway blocks, all of that is retained or maintained the same. It's just a slight shifting of some of the lot lines. And again, it was initiated for standardization purposes. It wasn't, the intent going into this wasn't to try and obtain additional lots. It was really just for that standardized building program. I do apologize that I watched the May 25th meeting, but I was not available to council for questions. I hadn't registered as a delegation. So I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to speak and clarify really what this request is and to show where the changes are located within phase 1A and 1B of the draft plan. Again, it's within keeping of the zoning that's approved, and we're hopeful that council is clear on what the request is, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that council might have. I can leave the graphic up if it's helpful for questions, or I can take it down.
Come on, I need to. Actually, Brandon, I need it down so I can see all of council to see if their hands up.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
So councilors, any questions? I have Councilor Rowland first and then Councilor Rossi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question for Brandon, then I guess I'm just curious about process. All these lots initially looked to be more or less all aligned with each other, and now they're all slightly askew. Is that intentional, or is that does that in practice now? It looks like in our older subdivisions, the lots all seem to line up across the street from each other, and everyone has sort of very similar lots. Now the lots are all slightly off.
Through you, Madam Mayor, a lot of the lotting actually was slightly off on the original draft plan as well. It is hard to see through the red line revision with the red on top of the gray, but it is true that some of the lots back to back, the rear corner posts do not align. And that was just to achieve efficiency of, it's not a perfectly square block. So some of the blocks are slightly longer than others. And it leads to a bit of an offset of some of the rear corner posts. The center property line back to back is the same, but the individual corner posts may be slightly offset, but that really was the case with the approved draft plan as well.
Oh, Councillor Austin, you took your hand down?
Yeah, I still have my question though.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So to be clear, you're adding 3 more lots on the street, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. So there's one additional lot that is realized on Street C, sort of west side of the plan, and then 2 additional lots on Street F on the east side of the plan. And that's just a matter of, as you come around the bend and tighten up some of the lots, there's room. There ends up being 2 additional lots that can be created.
So then you said they did that just to standardize the lots?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, it's to standardize the internal lots as much as possible throughout the subdivision.
So with that being in mind, if you would have reduced it by 3 lots, could you not standardize that street as well?
Well, maybe in some locations, but others, the lots have been adjusted in accordance with the approved zoning, and that fits a standard building product that the builder is looking to bring to market. So we've standardized them in compliance with the zoning. We haven't exceeded the zoning.
Okay. I just find it interesting that the plan is set with, as you just said, lot lines that are askew. Why was it developed that way in the first place? And the only way to alleviate that is by adding 3 more building lots. So, whatever it's worth, it's kind of here nor there, but I mean, it's better than the last plan, that's for sure.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, again, it's the length of the blocks that really determined how back-to-back property lines match up. And through this modification or through the original approved draft plan, there's just some locations for overall efficiency that they just did not line up.
And they didn't know about those efficiencies when they first designed it.
If I may, a builder has come on to build these lots now with a different vision than the developer in terms of they think of the process. Okay, we're selling, our sales office has each individual lot set up. We want to make sure that they're standardized to the extent possible so that there are no errors when you're selling lots, versus when we originally did the draft plan design, we knew what the zoning parameters were and we looked for an efficient design, but there was more variation throughout the subdivision.
So this builder purchased the lots in order to build on them?
That is correct.
Okay, and they didn't look at the draft plan before they purchased it to see if this draft plan suited their homes already?
If I may, Madam Mayor, it's not a matter of would their homes fit, it's a matter of being able to make sure that there's no confusion in the future. Their homes would fit on the existing draft plan, but it is to standardize it and make it standardized, for lack of better terms. Yeah. I hope I'm making that's clear.
Well, you're making clear. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I think they just want to have efficiencies of increasing 3 more building lots, because I can't understand how it would be confusing for someone to look at a certain building lot and then ask which house fits on it. But
if I may, Madam Mayor, and I understand that perspective, Councillor Ostner. What I can say though, and when a developer, and in this case, when the developer sells the lots for building, it's sold on per front foot of developable land. So it really doesn't make a difference. You know, from the developer standpoint, there is only so much street frontage that can be sold. If the builder can get 3 extra lots, there's not the financial reward to the developer to do that. So this, again, this was not financially driven. This was driven by a building program. And again, it's within keeping of the approved zoning.
I see no other questions. I will call for the motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that PD report number 37-2021 be received, and that the Region of Waterloo, being the approval authority for plans of subdivision, be advised that the township has no concerns with the red line revision for draft approved subdivision file number 30T-18301 for the proposed 3 additional single detached lots within the boundaries of phases 1A and 1B of the plan. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you very much.
Great.
And
Thank
have
you.
a good evening, Brandon.
Thank you. You too.
Wait till Brandon's out. Well, he's still, okay. Anyways, community services functions area, councilors, which items would you like pulled? I see Councilor Rolliman.
I'd like to talk about 6.1 and 6.3.
And next I have Councilor Ossner.
6.3.
And I also wanted 6.3, Councilor Gillespie.
6.4.
Okay. All right, that's everyone that I got then. Okay, so we are passing 6.2 and 6.5. Give me a second, I'll pull those individual ones. Okay, we can do 6.2, Ms. Sage. You're on mute, Ms. Sage.
Sorry.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Ossner, that report number rec-08-2021 be received, and that council authorize staff to make application within Canada Healthy Communities Initiative grant for the purchase and installation of outdoor fitness equipment at Clyde Park, 1220 Village Road, Community of Clyde, and that if the grant is successful and the installation of the outdoor fitness equipment at Clyde occurs, the annual maintenance fees estimated to be $100 per year be funded from the park's budget, and that the 2022 capital budget allocation in the amount of $38,500 be established as a pre-approval, subject to securing the grant allocation through the Canada Healthy Community Initiatives Program. Mayor Foxton?
Excitedly, yes. Looks like an amazing project.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
I think
That
that when we get this open, the council should all go out there and do a workout, and then Pam, you can feed us.
That's right. I can do that.
Okay, 6.5. I believe Councilor Rolliman, you were first.
On 6.1?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, we're passing 6.5, and then we'll do discussion on 6.1. So 6.5, please.
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that rec report number 10-2021 be received, and that township staff be authorized to issue a purchase order for the supply, delivery, and installation of the new gaskets for the North Dumfries Community Complex heat exchanger as a sole source purchase to Simcoe Toromont Refrigeration in the amount of $15,000 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents to facilitate the purchase. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now 6.1, the purchase of the cab and chassis. Councillor Rollerman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The question I have is for, I guess, for the director. When we discussed purchasing this truck and the budget was set at $445,000, we talked about normally we buy the cab and chassis and then we buy the modules. In this case, it was explained to us it's better to do it the other way around. But at the time, it was indicated that we would have no problem staying within budget. And now we're actually $18,000 over budget. And we're in a situation where we've already ordered the modules, so we can't really delay the purchase of the cab and chassis. We have to move forward. So I'm just wondering, was this the best method of purchasing this truck? Would it have made more sense to do it the traditional way of buying the cab and chassis first, and then council would have better control over staying in budget? Because now we're in a situation where we've already ordered the modules and we have to pick a cab and chassis, and now we're stuck having to go over budget.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Rollerman, with respect to the order of doing this, typically we would have put this out on the market as a whole unit. So they would have been on a single package as opposed to dividing it up. It would have gone through, because it's two separate components, it wouldn't have been eligible for the Sourcewell because they can't purchase it that way because it's not a single supplier for Sourcewell. So we would have had a considerable amount of staff time, et cetera, involved in the purchase of the combined unit, and they don't come separately. We historically would have purchased everything as a single bid that would have gone out to the market. We opted to do it in this particular case. We have chosen to do it this way. One of the main reasons that we had did it this way is that the lead time for the modules or for the winter control equipment, even on a traditional style of truck, has been 18-ish months. And we needed to get ourselves in line for that. So we wanted to be in line so that we had a spot when we were able to do that. If council wishes to modify the modules, that's certainly something we could do. And even if we pulled out of that, there are so many people lined up behind us that there would be lots of people more than happy to take our spot if that is the case, that council wishes to make those changes. It was more of a timing and the delivery of that, as well as the reduced costs associated with purchasing it through these groups. It was simply sent out as a quote, as opposed to a very difficult document to put together. We did anticipate when we previously did the did the modules that we would be within budget for that. That was the going rate we were seeing at the time. We have compared this to all the going rates that we're currently seeing, and this unfortunately is the going rate that we're receiving today. When we did it originally, my understanding is that there were not some factors in play from talking to the people in the industry. And there's been some implications in the steel industry, and the costs are going up considerably on a daily basis. So that's where we're standing at this point. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Councillor Rollerman, is that satisfactory?
Well, the only question I have in addition then would be, if we're taking this 18,000 out of our reserves, what's the opportunity cost? What are we sacrificing now in another project in the future to source this $18,000 from our reserves?
CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as Ms. Robinson's indicated, the price to buy new units has gone up, largely attributed to steel. Conversely, the used market has gone up in terms of valuations. And so when this truck becomes surplus, in other words, when the new unit arrives, the existing unit would be decommissioned and available for sale. If that market remains tight, then we should receive more money for the trade-in of that truck. And that may come close to closing the $18,000 gap that we have today.
Councillor Osner. You're on mute, Councillor Osner.
Yeah. Thank you. The question basically for Lee. The box that's going on this truck, is it aluminum or steel?
There are several different units that are going on the back of this. And so depending on what the unit is, I can certainly provide you the specs for that. That's under the modules that are done that, but I can certainly provide that to you. Some of it is aluminum and some of it is steel, depending on which module it is, depending on what the use is, which one we prefer to use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Councillor Wollerman, if we look at our surplus from 2020, we may be able to offset that differential. So we'll have to make note of that and remember that, okay? Any other questions on this item? Councillor Ossner, your hand's still up. Did you have another question?
No, I just put it up. I was just going to say that seems to be par for the course on everything post-COVID or as we're getting through COVID and coming out of COVID. Like everything is different today than it was yesterday and the day before, and tomorrow it'll be different again. It's very frustrating for most businesses, not just the building. It's spilling down to many different aspects in life. It's an unfortunate reality right now.
I asked the other day what was happening with Air Tractor at the highway, Bob Ballantyne's old business, because I saw there was very little equipment, and his family had said they can't get it. It's not available anywhere. And the costs are phenomenal too, because a lot of the merchandise, with so many companies shut down, they didn't manufacture the parts. And now that we're ready to go, nothing's being able to be made because the raw parts aren't available. It's an interesting time. Can I please have the motion since there's no more comments? Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Gillespie, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that PW report number 07-2021 be received, and that township staff be authorized to issue a purchase order for the supply and delivery of a cab and chassis from Carrier Truck Centers purchased through Sourcewell, LAS, the Municipal Buying Group program, in their total bid amount of $161,688.57 plus HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any necessary documents to facilitate the purchase. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have the Victoria Park new washroom location, Councillor Wollerman, Councillor Ossner, myself. So Councillor Wollerman, you're first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the washroom, it's part of a larger issue. I know we've had discussions previously about the equipment shed for air miner ball, some complaints about that. I've had some residents contact me and talk to me about potential washroom sites. Essentially, what I'm hearing from people is that they don't want to have these buildings on the edge of the ring road. So when we're looking at the washroom, I personally think, and talking with residents, sort of feel that option number 3, which is the red on the map on page 6, option number 3, which is the red block adjacent to tennis courts, seems to be the most reasonable spot that most people would be okay with. The question becomes, do we have to discuss the blue square, which is the current equipment shed, and do we have to move that? That's sort of that's the only other issue I want to add to this discussion tonight.
What would you recommend for that?
I would like to just see that shifted over to basically where the yellow square option 2 is, and then have the access turned on facing north-south instead of west-east.
Not a bad idea. That's a pretty good. Yeah.
I think that's the other way around though, isn't it?
Well,
Councillor Ossner, your turn. Go ahead.
North-south, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's north. No, it's west-east right now, so we want it north-south. Right. Okay. Councillor Ossner, you're next.
Basically, I would like to echo exactly what Councillor Rollman just said. I went for a walk there last night, and I was kind of, and it's the first time I've been up there since the shed has been built, and it's just I don't know how that location was selected. It's just kind of there, and it makes no sense with the ball diamonds being down there, and it is so close to the road that it blocks the neighbor, the Smucky's old house. You know, like it's directly right there. And I can see how they'd be upset about that. I'd be upset about that because there's nothing else that's been built that close to the road. yet it's built that close to the road. So I thought that if it would have been, you'll see, if you're looking at the map where that yellow, well, the yellow block is, as Councillor Ullman said, move it in north to south and put it right where that driveway ends. You can see where that driveway comes in, and then it's along with the tennis courts, and then it's not so obtrusive, it's not so in their face. And then the washrooms being a little bit more central rather than on the perimeter again makes a lot more sense than putting them to the outside. I don't want us to get in the habit of starting a community around the outside of the ring road, because that totally takes away from the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, and Council McCreary also has her hand up. I was going to go next, but I'll wait for Council McCreary. Go ahead, Council McCreary.
I was wondering about the cost of option number 3. Isn't there more cost of installing it, the washroom in the interior of the park, than if we were to put it option 1, the area which is a green square? If I understand the report, it's going to cost more to put it where the red square is?
Go ahead, Karen.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McCreary, that is correct. In order to move it away from the green proposed area that we had originally selected, it's a longer sanitary sewer run. And I took direction from Director Lee on this one.
So the additional cost is, I think, was $40,000 to $50,000 if we move it to the red square.
Potentially, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Lee, go ahead.
Through the mayor, just to add a little bit more to that, if you move it from the green to the yellow, you are probably looking at about a $30,000 to $40,000 cost. Once you move it into the red, your costs are going to increase probably a little bit more. There is a lot of trees with root systems, so you can't actually open trench through that area. So it's going to be you're going to actually probably have to come out, put in some manholes, and then go along the ring road to get a proper sewer installed to allow that. If council does recall, there were some problems with the drainage associated with the historical washrooms and some difficulties with that, likely due probably to some trees and some historical. So in order to do that, to move it to the red, you will be probably at least 50,000 to get that installed because of the way you're going to have to do it. So you're going to have to come out to the ring road and then along the edge of the ring road as well.
If I may, my objection to where the washrooms were originally planned was it defeats their purpose. The distance, okay, so you see that small diamond there, that's 4-year-olds. They've just toilet trained or just finishing toilet training. You think a parent's going to get them from where they sit all the way over to where the green was and make it? The first thing they're going to do is take that child across the road and let them pee in the bush or go to the washroom in the bush. Washrooms are meant to be serviceable and accessible for people, not to be out way out in left field, which is exactly where that would be. And I understand the cost, but we have to remember the purpose of what the building's for. I believe Councillor Ossner's next and then Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is where I have a problem understanding. Why is an option in here if it's a problematic option? It shouldn't even be an option. It shouldn't be in there if we're destroying trees, having to put manholes, having to do this and having to do that. Why is that even an option on our list? If we're going to do something, we shouldn't be doing that because it's cheap. Well, let's put it in the cheapest possible place in this park. That is going to be something that's going to be permanent for the next 50 to 60 to 70 years. Why are we thinking about the cheapest possible, just throw it in one location? Do it right or don't do it at all. So whatever this council decides is right, but I'm sick of hearing that's the cheapest place to put it, so let's just throw washrooms out there. Like we need people for that are forward thinking on this, and we need to do this right or don't do it at all.
Councillor Rollerman, then Councillor McCreary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with what you have said, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Ossner that the washrooms at the edge of Rose Street make no sense. Nobody's going to walk out there and use that washroom. As you're driving down Rose Street, the first thing you see is a public washroom. Welcome to our park. I just don't like it. The only thing I'm thinking about cost is when we look at the map on page 6, there's a red line that shows this is the boundary. If you follow that red line, the actual red line, it goes right along the new playground that's there on Rose Street. Could the washroom not go somewhere in that vicinity? Because that's right off of Rose Street. You could just trench right across, put the washroom somewhere either south of that playground or north of that playground structure. It would be still fairly close as option 3, but it would still give us that gravity fall. I'm just throwing out an idea. I don't know, but I really don't like it at the corner of Rose Street there.
That was one of my first thoughts, was by the playground, but Councilor McCreary. And then we'll go to Lee, okay?
As far as the option number 3 goes, I mean, there are other issues there besides the cost. I'm not just focusing totally on money. There is an argument that you should be trying to maximize the usable space within the interior of the park, preserving trees that are already there and planting more trees. Having some of these facilities around the edge of the park, it actually increases the usable space and could increase the tree cover. So I'm not totally against the green square option 1 at the corner of the streets there.
Are there any other comments? The motion reads that council approve a location for the new washroom built at Victoria Park adjacent to the intersection of Rose and the north leg of the Park Ring Road. So that's the motion. Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Anybody that knows the history about this park knows the reasons why it was designed as such. And there was a canteen in the middle of the park. There were washrooms in the middle of the park. There were trees planted 70 something odd years ago. Like this was designed with the community in mind. I still believe that we need to be building these things that when people come in, they don't look at us and say, why would they do that? Why would they stick a shed right out in the middle of nowhere? Why would they stick washrooms right out in the middle of nowhere? I can't even look at it, to be honest with you. I think it's ridiculous.
Councilor McCreary.
We're spending some money to restore the gazebo that was built 100 years ago. And what I noticed when the other buildings were there before they burned down and when they were torn down was how crowded it looked in that location, how the buildings were too close to the gazebo. The gazebo is could be a very attractive building, but it had these other buildings crowded up against it. It looked kind of like a mumbo jumbo hodgepodge. It really detracted from the gazebo. And I think since now we're going to be restoring it, the gazebo, we want to highlight it. And we don't want to have other buildings up close to it and take away from it and take away from the usable space around that gazebo, because we could be having performances in the gazebo. You might have people with lawn chairs that want to sit around the gazebo and they might not want to be sitting up against a washroom.
If I may, Councilor Rowland and Councilor Ossner, I just want to say to Councilor McCreary, so if you have concerts there, I want you to think of a senior maybe listening to a concert and having to go to where you are suggesting the washroom go. They'll never make it. But anyways, Councilor Rowland and then Councilor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate that the corner of Rose and the Ring Road is not acceptable, but could we not look at other options within that fall line? I mean, looking at the map, either the playground structure or what about even coming off of Walter Street? There's a sewer line over there. Could we not come in that triangular piece of land off the right as you enter the park? There's a big open field there. Could it not be tucked in there? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of different ideas here that won't interfere with the gazebo, but yet at the same time, if you have to walk from the ball diamond, the southern ball diamond, all the way to that washroom, you're not going to make it. So and that yellow line, that yellow curve shows the new fence that's going to be put up. So you have to walk all the way around that fence. You can't cut across a diamond. You have to walk all the way around that fence. So it's going to be a long, long hike out to that washroom. So I want council to think about that.
Councillor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, can we get the terminology correct? It's not a gazebo. That's a pavilion. It was built as a pavilion. It was not built as a gazebo. And it was built for musical performances and for multi-functions for the community, but it was not a gazebo. A gazebo suggests it's just a, covered area to protect you from the sun. That actually had purposes for performances, etc. When that was built originally, it didn't have tennis courts on one side, and I'm not even so sure it had the ball diamond on the other side. So it didn't become, as Councilor McCreary said, in her opinion, cramped. It came that way afterwards when the tennis courts were placed there and the ball diamond was placed there. And the canteen was there and the washrooms were located close to the canteen, because nobody's going to go to the canteen with their children and purchase popcorn, chips, pop, whatever they do, and then send their kids to the other side of the park to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I think it was created as a hub, and I don't think it was crowded, in my opinion. Another thing was everything was green and browns back then to match the environment. And so, yeah, but again, this is a washroom. Do we not have to think how practical a washroom has to be? Where should the washroom go? Practicality. Like Councillor Rowland suggested some really good areas. But Councillor Rowland, if we went by the South Line, we're creating huge distances for people at the tennis courts or at the other ball diamond. You need a washroom pretty centrally located based upon the activity in your park to meet the need. And washrooms meet a physical need. Councillor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I would like to see this out in the green territory where it is, I would support Councillor Rowland's suggestion, because at least at that spot, you're close to where the young children are playing. You're close to where the young children, and the playground equipment. You're close to where the young children are playing baseball, because the players that are usually playing on the big diamond are adults, and they can make it a little farther than kids can to go to the bathroom. So at least Councillor Rowland's suggestion would be acceptable. And after Rod suggested it, Lee had her hand up, so I'd like to hear Lee's opinion on it. But I think that would be more acceptable than any other choice if option 3 is not decided upon.
Lee, I'm sorry, your turn.
Through the mayor to council, I think one of the phrases you will always hear me say is, if you write me a big enough check, I can do anything that you would like. The further we get away from the green square, the more the costs are going to increase. So if you're looking at putting servicing further down, sort of closer to that red line, as opposed to by the red square, your costs are going to go up. On the service connection that we have to connect to out on Rose Street is probably about halfway between the red line and the fence line. So it's a much further distance that we're going to have to travel to do that. I'm not 100% positive it can be done by gravity. We would have to actually get that information. And likely, if it can't be done by gravity, we can certainly put in a sewage pump that would just pump it up to the gravity system. It's absolutely doable. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware that as the further we move away from green, the more it's going to cost to provide those services to those buildings. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it astronomical? Not likely, but it will increase the costs the further we move away.
Councillor Ossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there a an alternative option? Maybe not as far back as the red box. Maybe if we if we're able to turn the supply shed around to a north-south location at the end of that drive, is there any way to bring that red block a little closer to a little bit closer to the road, so it's maybe not quite as much for installation?
Anybody want to tackle that? Lee, go ahead.
Through the mayor to council. One of the tricky things with, I'm going to say the yellow box, is the proximity to, there's an underground hydro service there as well as an overhead hydro line. So everything that we do in that area has to be wedged in the 3-meter clearance that we have to receive from the hydro line. So we need it from an aerial, from a ground, etc. So it will be a tricky dance. But we could certainly try to figure out a way to make, if that's the direction that council wishes to go, we could certainly go out there and figure out how we could angle it and how we could fit it all in appropriately, maintaining those distances. It's not quite as simple as just flipping it sideways, but it's certainly doable. We just have to, it'll be a little bit of a field fitting exercise to try to get them all in there and maintain those clearances.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we're really looking at two things here. Do we need, well, we obviously need to vote on the washroom, but do we need to bring forth a motion on switching the, moving the ball equipment building to maybe put it into a north-south location, maybe a little further over, so it's not so blocking the neighbors? Do we need to put a motion through that, or can we encompass it into the same thing, or how we
What
can
I
do
would
that?
suggest is we read the first motion. Should the first motion fail, then another motion be proposed from the floor and we go from there. Councillor Gillespie.
I was just going to say, we seem to be going around in circles, so I think we should defer this whole thing and get some more information about how you can fit these buildings in.
That
rather
was
than
my
just
next
going around
question.
in circles.
That was my next question to Karen and Lee. What kind of time frame are we on based upon the grant?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the council, we are under a tight time frame. The actual agreement has to be signed and completed for the ICIP grant by August the 10th. So given that the tender has to go out 30 days, proposals have to be reviewed and come back to council on August the 9th, there's not a whole lot of extra time, given that council doesn't meet again for another 2 weeks.
Councillor Rossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't see why we can't make a decision tonight. I think we have to make a decision what we feel is the best location, and move forward with doing it.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I see there. Ms. Sage, will you read the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor Rolleman, that report number Rec-09-2021 be received, and that the council approve a location for the new washroom build at Victoria Park adjacent the intersection of Rose Street and the north leg of the Park Ring Road. So, Mayor Foxton?
No.
Councillor Rolleman? Councillor Ossner?
No.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
No.
Okay, that is defeated.
Thank you. Councillor Rolleman and Councillor Ossner, would you like to propose a new motion? Please
Yes, Madam
advise.
I'd like to propose a motion that we choose option 3 as indicated in the staff report, and with the amendment that we move the blue indicated equipment shed to a north-south alignment on the former gravel driveway adjacent to tennis courts.
Councillor Ossner, will you second?
I will second that motion.
Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Sage, do you have the motion?
I could just have the second portion reread. I just didn't quite catch it all.
The second portion refers to the Air Junior VIX equipment shed, which is indicated on the map as a blue rectangle. Have that shed relocated to the former gravel driveway adjacent to the tennis courts on the north-south axis. That makes sense.
Sorry, and that the equipment shed being moved to the former gravel. Sorry, that was gravel road.
Driveway, yeah.
Driveway.
On a north-south axis rather than the west-east. Are we good, Ms. Sage?
Okay, I moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor Ossner, that Council endorse option 3 as outlined in the staff report for the location of the washrooms in Victoria Park, and that Council relocate the equipment shed to the former gravel driveway in a north-south direction. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Before I say yes, I just want to clarify, it's where the gravel driveway ends, right? I don't want to put on the gravel driveway so it's right on against the road still. The gravel driveway has a little bit of a driveway, it stops, and then I'm hoping the shed goes there.
Correct.
Okay, then yes.
Ms. Sage, do you have that corrected? I probably said it wrong first. So at the end of the gravel driveway.
Yes, I will amend it accordingly.
Thank you.
Councillor McCreary?
No.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And next we have 6.4. Councillor Gillespie wanted to speak on the grant application for Ontario Community Environment Fund. Oh, CEO McNeely first.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to clarify. We would put it in proximity to the end of the gravel driveway at the Victoria Park, recognizing our obligations under the Electrical Standards Association to have a minimum of a 3-meter separation from the aerial hydro, as well as the underground hydro service.
Understood. Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
The Ontario Community Environment Fund.
Yes, I'm in total agreement to be purchasing trees and planting trees. I'm just a little concerned about these gypsy moth things. And I just wondered, are we putting money in our budget to keep gypsy moths off these trees? Because there's no use planting trees if we're just going to let them get eaten by gypsy moths, which it's bad again this year. People are complaining. We're not doing anything. There's so many controversial rules about whether you should spray or not spray or put burlap on or tape. It's very confusing, but do the staff go around and take off the little pods in March like they should do? I'd kind of like to know that.
Anybody wish to respond, staff? Go ahead, CEO McNeely.
No, Madam Mayor, staff aren't going around scraping off pods in March. We have thousands of trees across our various land holdings. It's in a lot of cases, it's just physically impractical, given we own valley lands and the like. In our park system and in our road boulevards, we have put up in some locations barriers to assist in capturing the gypsy moth. These trees, when planted, will be actually after when the gypsy moth has gone from a caterpillar stage to a moth stage. But they won't be planted now until the fall, given where we are in the season.
Councillor McCreary.
I would just ask about where are we going to plant these trees? I'm wondering if some of the trees could be going out into the parks in wards 3 and 4. Could we be adding some trees to potentially Roseville Park and Browns?
Go ahead, Sierra McNeely.
Madam Mayor, through to Councillor McCreary, actually these probably be going to Clyde Park. We have physically removed between 18 and 20 trees in the last year, and there's another 7 or 8 to be dropped in the next few weeks. We have received substantial loss of emerald ash trees in Clyde Park due to the emerald ash borer. We have pretty well lost all of our tree cover in Clyde Park.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to know that some of these trees are going to rural areas. And Mayor Foxton, if I may ask one more question about this, another comment. Actually, very few trees actually die or are killed from the gypsy moth. In my area, there may be some conifers that aren't going to make it. But even though the gypsy moth might completely defoliate a tree, it doesn't necessarily die. And actually, yeah, the conifers might, deciduous trees probably won't. And there's lots of things that homeowners can do on their own to combat gypsy moth. And we've got that on the township's webpage. It is very unpleasant and it is very time consuming, but it does get some results. We're having some results in my area. Just a lot of hard work. Thanks.
Councillor Rossner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do we have any kind of a policy where, like for example, in Clyde Park, if we've lost that many trees, should we not replace it with at least 1 tree per tree that's lost? Like, should we be putting, you said we lost how many trees, Andrew?
Mayor Foxton, through to Councillor Rossner. The last year, 18 months, we've removed between 18 and 20 trees at Clyde Park. And we've got another 6 or 7 to drop this year. They were emerald ash trees, and the emerald ash borer devastated that cluster of trees, and we've lost substantially our tree cover. So this year, Township Council, as part of the operating budget, for the first time, has introduced a spending account for tree replacement, and it's largely in recognition of the trees that we've lost, predominantly related to wind and ice storms, as well as the emerald ash borer. We're looking at doubling this year's expenditure if we're successful in getting this grant.
And if I may, to Councillor Gillespie, Councillor McCreary is absolutely right. The gypsy moth don't kill the trees. And they only survive 3 years, a maximum 3 years. So this is year 2. They may not come back next year. It's iffy for next year. But the spray that they spray on them actually has a diverse effect on caterpillars and butterflies and other things as well. So it's a mixed bag. The emerald ash borer, Councillor Rossner, GRCA has been fighting it for over 10 years. They spend and get grant money for about $400,000 a year, and it's still way ahead of us. So the emerald ash borer, we've had no real quick, easy solution for that one. And it's done devastation to a lot of our forest areas that the emerald ash is existing in. Councillor Rossner.
Thank you. So just to finish my original question, after I got the information from CEO McNeely, so then how many trees are we putting out in Clyde Park then?
So each tree, if we plant them ourselves, has a cost of around $350 per unit. So, we're looking at between the grant and what we have in our budget, would plant about 28 trees.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I see no more questions, so we are at 6.4. Ms. Sage, would you read it, please?
Moved by Councillor McCreary, seconded by Councillor Rollman, that CAO report number CAO-17-2021 be received, and that council authorize staff to submit a grant application through the Ontario Community Environment Fund program in the amount of $5,000 to purchase, plant trees in township parks. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. Next, we have protective services, governance and protective services, 7.1 to 7.6. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from that? Councillor Ossner?
Yes, 7.2.
Okay, and Councillor Rollman
7.2 as well.
and Councillor Gillespie.
7.2 and 7.4.
Okay, just gonna get 7.4 down here. And Councillor McCreary. You're on mute again.
7.3 and 7.4.
7.3. 7.4. All right, thank you. And first up is Councillor Ossner on the voting method.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, I just want to support the hybrid method. I'm not sure how the motion reads, but I think it's important to consider all aspects of the voting. And so that's basically all I wanted to say in regards to the voting method.
Can you quickly restate the hybrid method? Let me find it here. Oh, not the gaskets.
Madam
Sierra
Mayor, the
McNeely
hybrid,
and 20
the
go ahead.
hybrid option would be allowing individuals to vote by paper ballot at a poll location in addition to internet voting. So an individual could choose one option out of those two scenarios.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rollman, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would agree with Councillor Ossner on this one. I think the hybrid model is the best option here. I think if we have the internet voting for perhaps a week before the actual election, as we did in the past, and then on election day, we could have a few polls open to accommodate those who wish to vote in person with a paper ballot. So I would be in support of the hybrid model as well.
And if Councillor Gillespie, you're also on this.
Yes, I would just like to say that I agree with how the motion is written. I think we should stick with telephone and internet like we did last time. Everyone's getting so much used to these days doing everything over the internet and telephone. I can't see that there's a problem. And I think we tried it last time. I think we should stick with it again.
Councillor McCreary.
I just like to say I agree with Councillor Gillespie. I think we had a very efficient, well-run election last time. I think the internet voting is very accessible, and I think that almost everyone's able to do it. There's plenty of help for people if they have some trouble. The significant burden that we'd be placing on staff to also add paper ballots and having to administer two types of elections at once is really unnecessary and is quite a burden for a small township. I think we had a very well-run election in 2018, and I would like to see it done the same way in 2022. Put
my 2 cents worth in. I like the hybrid method. I think that we already have advanced polls, but we also had our staff out at Clyde Women's Institute as well as at our center, trying to bring people in to show them how to vote internet-wise. Instead of showing them how, maybe allowing them just a paper vote. It's no increase in staff time or anything else because they're already coming in to get tutored, so they could vote there instead of being tutored. I think it's a fair thing. I think some people just don't like it. And I think we want everyone to vote. I was really shocked that the numbers didn't go up in voting. They actually went down. I was very shocked at that because it said in the poll 39 point something for 14 and then went down to 37.6, I think. But anyways, let's have the motion, please. And the motion states the Township Council approve and use internet and telephone voting as alternative voting methods. So it's not the hybrid method that we're talking about, I believe. All right, so the motion, please, Ms. Sage.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Rowland, seconded by Councillor McCreary, that report CLK-06-2021 be received, and that the Township of North Dumfries Council approve the use of internet and telephone voting as the alternative voting method for the 2022 municipal and school board election, and that staff be directed to present bylaw number 3244-21, being a bylaw to provide for an alternative voting method for the 2022 election at the June 28th, 2021 regular council meeting for enactment. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
No.
Councillor Rowland?
No.
Councillor Ossner?
No.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That is defeated.
Okay, do we have another motion to put forward? Anyone wish to put forward the hybrid method?
Yep, Madam Mayor.
You're on mute, Sue.
Staff, stop muting me, please. That's the second time this has happened. I do not want to be put on mute by staff. Councillor Ossner, are you moving the motion?
I'm sorry, did Councillor Rowland, you
Did you-
I'll second it, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring forth the motion for the hybrid method.
Okay, Ms. Sage, do you have that ready to go?
I do, yes, Mayor Foxton. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that the Township of North Dumfries Council approve the use of a hybrid voting method system using the internet and paper ballots and optical scan voting tabulators for the 2022 municipal and school board election, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw authorizing the use of internet and paper ballots using optical scan vote tabulators as an alternative voting method for the 2022 election to the June 28th, 2021 regular council meeting for enactment, and that further discussions regarding additional funding related to the 2022 municipal election be brought forward as part of the 2022 operating budget meeting. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
No.
Councillor Gillespie?
No.
That carries.
Thank you. The next one is the revised accessibility policy and accessible customer service. Margaret, you get your hand up for that.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I was just noticing in the redraft of the policy that it mentioned that volunteers needed to be trained. And I'm wondering what volunteers that will include in our township. Thanks.
Who's going to take that one? Are you going to take that, Ashley? Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Foxton. So volunteers primarily includes our advisory committee members as well as our volunteer firefighters. So they would all be included as part of the training on the accessibility policies.
Okay, people who are on advisory committees would not be trained then? Just
Yes, they would. That's what she said.
They would be, yes. Yes.
The advisory committees would be trained as well as the volunteer firefighters.
Air minor hockey, those people, would they be? No.
That's
Just be-
outside our realm. They would have their own.
Directly with the township. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Can I have the motion, please? If there's no other comments, no. Motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that report CLK-07-2021 be received and that council adopt the revised accessibility policy and accessible customer service policy, both included as attachment number 1 and 2 to the report. Mayor Foxton, your vote for that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.
that carries.
Thank you. Now the exotic pets. Council Gillespie first and then Council McCreary.
I'm just a little confused on this list of animals. There's like horses and cows and sheep and stuff like. Well, why are those on there? I can't figure this out.
Who would like to take that? I think CEO McNeely froze. No, you're not frozen. Okay. Please, CEO McNeely. You were faking it. You wanted out of the discussion.
Ms. Sage will speak to this report.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so the bylaw as presently written was very narrow and it did have a lot of gaps in terms of the animals that weren't included. We did under a review that we did do, we wanted to ensure that the bylaw, if any kind of issues come up in the future or any complaints come through, that our bylaw covers all different types of animals that are currently covered. So part of the review, we did look at other exotic pet bylaws in the other municipalities. So we did make sure that the bylaw is brought up to be current and that it's more in alignment with the standards and regulations that are there today.
That doesn't answer the question though.
So yeah, are you saying cattle, sheep, deer, goats, and pigs are exotic animals?
CEO McNeely. You're on mute. And I didn't turn you on mute.
Madam Mayor, through Councillor Gillespie, it's exact opposite. We've differentiated livestock from exotic pets. So the listing that you gave, like turkeys, cattle, horse, pigs, where livestock are permitted in zoning, which would be the Z1 zone classification, where agricultural husbandry is permitted, those animals would be permitted. But you wouldn't allow that in, for example, a residential zone classification in air.
Okay, well, I didn't get that from this whole list of things. Okay.
Council McCreary was next and then Council Rollman. Council McCreary, you did want to speak on this.
I'm looking at the exemptions. Number
What-
F.
What page are you on, Council McCreary? Do you know?
Page 185 of our agenda.
Okay, I've got it. Yep. Number F. Okay, livestock kept under normal farming practices in applicable zones within the township. Okay.
Actually, there are two Fs and oh, there's a typo here. There are two Fs and two
Oh,
Gs.
yes.
I was actually looking at the second F. Animals that are derived from a self-sustaining captive population. And I was just trying to imagine what that exemption was supposed to be capturing. What is it?
And there's two Fs and two Gs, so we need that corrected in the bylaw.
Yeah, I can
Maybe-
look into that further and
Yeah, maybe we should have this looked into a little more and maybe tried to clarify a little bit better. But Council Rollman, you've had the
There we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is regarding the first F, livestock kept under normal farming practices. So in the past, we'll remember back in wonderful 2015, we discussed the bull on a rope. So I'm wondering, would something like a rodeo or something like the bull on the rope, would that fall under not normal farming practices? I'm just wondering, where are we at with that sort of thing? Because I know I'm going to have residents bring it up again. And if the bylaw has any sort of gray area, I think this first F clause has a little bit room for interpretation. And I just want to make sure that we're very clear on what we're saying.
So normal farm practices applies to the business of agriculture, and in this case, specifically agricultural husbandry. Entertainment, which is what Bull on a Rope was, is not animal husbandry in support of an agricultural operation.
But he brings up a really good point, C.O. McNeely. We didn't have jurisdiction over Bull on a Rope. It fell under another category, and we didn't really have jurisdiction. Creating this bylaw, does it give us jurisdiction on a Bull on a Rope?
Madam Mayor, this deals with people having animals, wildlife within their residence.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies it. Perfect. Any other questions? Do we want this to go back for correction and clarification? So we will defer then, if that's okay. Call the motion, please, Ms. Sage.
That report CLK -08-2021 be received, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw number 3255-21, being a bylaw to regulate exotic animals in the Township of North Dumfries at the June 28th, 2021 regular council meeting for enactment. Mayor Foxton?
Defer.
Councillor Rollman?
But if we vote yes, then all's going to happen is they're going to bring it back in June with the corrections. So I'm going to vote
Well,
yes.
that we can direct them. Yeah, and I was just thinking that too. You're absolutely right, Councillor Roman. So what if we put in there,
Well, I see Steve has his hand up.
change, can we amend the motion to state with further correction and clarification? C.A. McNeely.
Madam Mayor, if council defers this, staff will do the cleanup. Staff will provide clarity to the questions that have been raised in a follow-up report, which council could consider as early as the June 28th meeting.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll stay with the deferral.
Okay, then can I change to deferral then?
Councillor Ossner?
Okay, deferral.
Councillor McCreary?
Deferral.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Deferral.
Okay, the item's deferred.
Thank you. Next is council meeting schedule. And there's no questions or comments on that, so we'll pass that one, Ms. Sage.
Moved by Councillor Ossner, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that report CLK-11-2021 be received, and that council amend the 2021 council meeting schedule by adding a council meeting on Tuesday, August 10th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Thank you. And the next is the security cameras for the fire station.
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that CAO report number 16-2021 be received, and that the treasurer be authorized to fund the 2021 the purchase and installation of an external security camera system in the Air Fire Station 501 Scott Street in the amount of $8,500, and that funding for the completion of this project be drawn from the facilities reserve account. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now we will adjourn committee of the whole to move into closed. Or adjourn committee of the whole.
Moved by Councillor Rollman, seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order. Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now we have a motion to go into closed session.
That council move into a closed meeting session at 8:18 p.m. under the Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B, to discuss 1, report number CLK-09-2021 and report number CLK-10-2021. Both items are personal matters about an identifiable individual including municipal or local board employees, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection B regarding advisory committee applicants. Mayor Foxton,
Yes.
Councillor Rollman,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie,
Yes.